From Blackfoot to Teton, we've got your District 6 breakdown right here on the East Idaho Prepcast with Lance Taylor.
That's right. It's another edition of the East Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, breaking down everything going on in Districts 5 and 6 in the state of Idaho. Brandon Baney with Lance Taylor. The East Idaho Prepcast is brought to you by Pure Adrenaline Motorsports, your source for pulse-pounding adrenaline sports apparel and accessories that ensure you have what you need to unleash your inner beast. There's those beastly sunglasses. Yeah, looks good. You can see that on the video version of this Prepcast on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel or our Facebook page. Audio only, of course, is an option as well at IdahoSports.com or wherever you download your podcasts. Lance, what's going on?
Don't forget, you can pick those up at all good-to-go stores, Bill's Bike and Run, Ron's Tire, and Motorsports in Idaho Falls. You can pick up all the gear, not just glasses, but all the gear there at Ron's Tire and Motorsports in Idaho Falls.
Yeah, what tell us a little bit about some of the other gear with Pure Adrenaline Motorsports.
We have monosuits for snowmobiling, some of the most beautiful colors you'll see on monosuits. We also have motocross gear, jerseys, pants, gloves. We have aftermarket parts, bumpers and so forth that are getting released this coming spring as well for ATVs. We got those going for snowmobiles as well. Coming up, we're sponsoring a lot of the hill climb events, snowmobile hill climb events that are coming up shortly as well. So it's been a big year, big fun year.
Definitely. It's been a fun year in high school athletics as well. And Lance, you and I talked about last week, we're hoops junkies. We love basketball. So let's just dive right into it. I think the biggest story to come out of East Idaho last week in terms of basketball was the Preston boys heading over to the Treasure Valley and beating, not just beating, but beating pretty convincingly two of the teams that are expected to contend in the Southern Idaho Conference in 4A basketball. They defeated Valley View Friday night, 56-39, and then they beat Bishop Kelly on Saturday, 63-49. I think Preston has sent a message to the rest of the state that, hey, the title still runs through Preston High School.
Yeah, and Preston's had double-digit wins over everybody this year with the exception of Burley. Preston's just a very good team. They got wins over some good Utah teams as well. Tyler Jones, a fantastic coach there. Preston has firmly jumped in my camp as the team to beat.
They are now the number one team in the coaches poll and 5-0 start, but also lurking in that division, Lance, is Pocatello, and the Thunder are undefeated as well. They're 4-0. They defeated Highland in their crosstown rivalry game last week, 64-60, kind of a close back and forth battle. They also defeated Bonneville. So if you look at just the scores, Pocatello defeated Highland 64-60. Preston has also played Highland this year, and they won 58-42. Do you look at the common opponents much, or does that not matter?
I think it's all about matchups. Sometimes matchups are different. There's I think maybe a little more energy going on when you're playing a crosstown rival as well, that brings some things out. It's obvious Highland is not a great team this year. They've got their struggles. So that being a closer game, I don't think much about it. We'll learn a lot about Pocatello this weekend, though, as they go to the Owhyee tournament as well. And got to remember, they've got a win over a good, if you want to talk about common opponents as well, they've both played Burley as well. And that was the only game that was in single digits for Preston, and Pocatello beat them by 23. So, there's some, I think it's just all about matchups.
That's a great point. And we've talked about this conference being really strong again. And even Century is 3-3. They've also beaten Burley. So
there's no losing record in their conference right now. 2-1 record and then 500 for Century. But they lost big to Bonneville of Utah. They played two Bonnevilles in a row. One was Utah, one was Idaho, the Lakers and the Bees. And they lost by 24 in that game. But they had, some close ones against Logan, Green Canyon, both Utah schools as well. So, Century might end up being pretty decent.
Yeah, I think Century is going to be a sneaky team as well. So basically what that tells me is Burley would be fourth place in this conference.
Yep. I think they would be at this point. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how Harwell does. I think Harwell's got the most ability to grow throughout the course of the season as well. And I think that makes Century pretty dangerous.
Yep. And again, not to belabor the point, but only one of those teams is going to advance to state this year, which is just we've beaten that horse. It is what it is. If we look at the 5A basketball ranks, again, Madison, a strong start out of the gates. They're 5-2 overall. Rigby is right there too, though. They're 4-1. And I'll admit, I wasn't sure what to think of Rigby coming into this season, Lance, because they lost so much from last year's team, but they've got one of the best coaches around in Justin Jones.
Well, that's the thing. Justin's got him going. It's not what I would say is a highly talented team this year. They're really mostly athletes with just a couple of basketball players on that team, so they're not really a high scoring team. By and large, you're going to have to keep games under a certain amount of points. But I mean, they only lost 2 to a very good Hillcrest team, and had an opportunity to win that game as well. And I think Rigby, again, because they're so well coached, they'll always be competitive, even on years when maybe the talent's down a little bit.
Yeah, both Rigby and Madison have lost to Hillcrest. Rigby only lost by 2. Hillcrest lost by 9. So again, the common opponent thing. Each of those two teams, and a lot of teams from East Idaho, they play Utah opponents early on, right? Hillcrest and Madison went to a very early season tournament at Corner Canyon. There's a lot of non-conference games. I want to pick your brain on this because both Idaho and Utah basketball really well. How does Utah stack up to Idaho in terms of competition?
Well, in terms of competition for basketball, it's very similar. They can compete with each other. The difference is football. I mean, we have very good teams in Rigby and so forth, but when you start talking the upper echelon of what Utah has in, Lone Peak, Corner Canyon, Bingham, those kind of schools, our big 5A schools would struggle to compete with their 6A schools down there. But in basketball, we compete very, very well. In fact, really some key games coming up for this, the 5A group right now is you've got Madison will be hosting both Corner Canyon and Skyview High School out of the Logan area, just north there in Smithfield. So that's going to be a big step for them as well. So you look at Madison at 5-2. That's a different 5-2 than a lot of teams that would be around 5-2. They've played some tough games. They lost their only losses to Bingham High School, big 6A school down in Utah, and Hillcrest. That wins over Maple Mountain from Utah, Westlake from Utah. Those are both 5A schools in Utah. Bingham's 6A school. So Madison's got a good team. Madison has a very good team this year. For the most part, Utah and Idaho compete top to bottom when it comes to basketball.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. Corner Canyon is actually coming up for a little 2-game swing. We're recording this Thursday morning of the 16th. Tonight, Corner Canyon is at Rigby, and then Friday night they'll be at Madison. So that'll be another little comparison we can use between these two teams.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try to catch some of those games tonight. Tomorrow I won't be able to, but tonight I want to catch the games.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So we'll keep an eye on how Madison and Rigby do against some Utah opponents. 3A Mountain Rivers Conference. Everybody kind of middle the pack in terms of record, but they've all played really tough schedules. Teton 3-2, South Fremont 3-3, Sugar 2-2, clear as mud, kind of like we thought coming in.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be a very competitive conference this year in terms that they do get a team and a third into state this year for basketball. At least that's what I say. And it's going to be very, very competitive, very tough. I haven't had a chance to look at Teton or South firsthand this year. Of course, I do PA for Sugar games, so I've been able to see them. Sugar's issues, their challenges that they're running into this year. Their plays are working fantastically. They're just struggling to put the ball in the hole. Their plays are giving them every shot they want. Missing a lot of point blank shots right now and things like that. And of course, all a coach can do is give you the plays that give you the best opportunity to put the ball in the hole. But as a player, you got to be able to put them in, and that was a little bit of their struggles last year as well. Of course, Teton was a very, very good team last year. They lost a lot of those seniors off that team and lost a lot of size with that. But Teton's playing fairly well. They did lose to Ryrie and Shelley. Their 2 wins are over West J. They've got 2 wins over West J. They got a win over Salmon. So in the win column, they haven't really faced necessarily anybody powerful yet, but But you look at South Fremont, they knocked off Ryrie. American Falls isn't super good. Sam is not super good, but they lost close ones to Fruitland, as well as Firth. So I think they've got some potential this year.
Yeah, South Fremont and Sugar already have a couple of signature wins. You mentioned South beating Ryrie, and Sugar Salem two nights ago, Tuesday night, handed Snake River their first loss of the season, 38-33.
Yeah, very, very low-scoring game. Good defensive game by both teams, and another game where neither team could hit a stinking layup. It was just one of those nights where they just couldn't put it in the hole, either team. But that was sixes. It was one of those things that it didn't help or hurt one team over the other because they were both missing, and it came down to really this good defensive battle. But that game is always going to be a physical game. Everybody knows it, and typically is a low-scoring game because of that.
Yeah, so Snake River now 5-1 if we look at District 5 for 3A basketball. Marsh Valley is still the team, they're the defending state champs, but they've only played 3 games so far, Lance. So they're kind of hard to get a feel for. They're 2-1. We'll find out a lot about them tonight as they travel to Teton to play the Timberwolves.
Yeah, they beat Bear River of Utah earlier in the season. Bear River is a 3A down there in Utah, but they would be 4A here. In fact, they'd be a decent size 4A here. They also beat a good West Side team. West Side team that already has a signature win this year too. We'll talk about them in just a moment too. And then they lost to Union by 5 points. Union High School out there in the Vernal area, Dinosaur Land area of Utah. But Marsh Valley is going to be very tough. We already know that. American Falls is not going to be a competitor in the conference. Starting out 0-4, but Snake River's got a key game coming up this week as well. In fact, tomorrow they're going to be at Kimberly. I've had a chance to watch Kimberly this year, and they're going to be at Kimberly. Kimberly, very, very athletic team, and so that'll even maybe give a better gauge of where Snake River's at.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch that game as well, because Kimberly is the favorite in that district. Yeah. So, you mentioned a lot of these 3A schools have lost to Shelley early on. The Russets, 5-0 overall, 1-0 in the conference, and they've got some nice wins under their belts.
Well, and their only really close game was against Minico. Other than that, their games have been pretty comfortable. At least the final scores have. And I've had a chance to watch them this year. Shelley is not an overall that they don't really have a single head-topping player, but most of their lineup is pretty tall and they're long, very long. They cause some havoc for teams, particularly if a team doesn't have an outside game going on. They're going to struggle against Shelley because it's hard to get your inside game going against Shelley, and that could pose a little bit of a problem. When we were talking earlier in this podcast about matchups, how matchups tend to make a difference. This is one of the places where Hillcrest might be challenged just a little bit, because it might be a little harder for Isaac Davis to get going against a team like this. Now, the balance of that is that Hillcrest has very good three-point shooters, but can they do an inside-out game rather than their guards having to drive all day long? So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, Cannon Vance, 6'6" senior, really the anchor inside for Shelley. He's a great player to watch. Shelley beat Idaho Falls earlier this year, the first time ever Shelley had beaten a 5A program. And that game against Minico, that 28-25 win, Devin Maldonado had the buzzer beater to win that game. That was kind of a cool deal for him as well. So, Shelley, we're keeping an eye on. Hillcrest is 4-2. Another team we're watching closely is Ryrie, and Lance, you and I kind of pegged them as kind of a sleeper team in our season preview. Well, I'm not sure they're a sleeper anymore, as they're off to a 6-1 start.
Yeah, they might not be. Their only loss was South Fremont, and that's a signature win for South, as we talked about. But Ryrie's a good team right now. I mean, they got key wins over West Side, Teton. They did a very good job in the Lyman, Wyoming tournament as well, going undefeated when they were down there. So Teton's a good team. And again, they were, I think I said last week, they're my dark horse for that conference. And you never know. They could become the lead horse in that conference.
I really do like them. They beat Westside by 2, Teton by 3, Wind River, Wyoming by 4, Lyman, Wyoming by 6. Malad last night by 9. They're winning these tight games, which will only pay off down the road, right?
Yeah, they are. And I think, as you look at what they've got, Salmon and West J, they're not going to be a push. I don't think they're even spoilers in that conference at all. So really you got North who just has the one loss. Of course, we'll talk about that here in a minute because that was a signature loss, you should say. Firth at 5-2. They lost to Melba and Fruitland, and they've got a good win over Bear Lake. We'll talk about Bear Lake here in just a minute as well. They've got a win over South by 20 points. Does Firth. So between North, Firth, and Ryrie, that's a very interesting top of the conference.
Yes, yeah. Let North Fremont, of course, the defending conference champs, been a premier program the last 3 or 4 years, and they're 3-1. The one loss was to West Side in that season opener, 46-42. To me, that's kind of a blip on the radar. They've now beaten Wendell and Bear Lake, 2 teams that went to state last year in 2A basketball. I think North Fremont's just fine.
Yeah. And I got a chance to see them last night as they knocked off Sugar Salem last night. That was a close game all throughout. Lead changed a number of times, but the discipline, you will be hard pressed at any level to find a more disciplined team than what Shannon Hill has there at North Fremont. Very disciplined. They'll absolutely abuse you with fundamentals. They are that kind of a team.
Yeah, let's talk about Westside, the team that was able to knock off North Fremont back in the season opener. Pirates are 2-2. They've just got athletes, just like in football. They've just got good, solid athletes. Their 2 losses are nothing to be, to sneeze at. 2 points to Ryrie, and they lost by 12 to Marsh Valley, the defending 3A champs.
Yeah. Those losses are nothing you're going to say, well, those were bad losses, And of course, they've got some signature wins. They got that win over North. And we're going to be talking about Grace here in just a minute too. They've got a win over a Grace team that I believe is a very, very good Grace team. And we'll talk about that as it goes along. But really, you look at the rest of the conference. Let me tell you, the sleeper in that conference, that 0-4 for Bear Lake is not indicative of how good Bear Lake is. I had a chance to see Bear Lake this year. They are a very good team. They can shoot the ball. What they've done is they've been in a lot of close games. They've just failed to close some of those out, but that's the best 0-4 team that you're going to see.
Yes. I actually had a chance to talk to Bear Lake head coach Brandon Carlson earlier this week, and he told me that, hey, look, we went deep in the playoffs for football. We got all the way to the semifinals, and we got some guys that are still nursing some nagging football injuries. We haven't had our full lineup on the floor yet. They've, whatever game it is, they've been missing a key guy or two, including his own son, Keaton Carlson, who's a junior. He re-injured his shoulder 52 seconds into the season opener against Grace. So,
yeah. And as they came to Sugar, I had a chance to talk to him as well. And because they'd lost up to North Fremont the night before. And he told me, he says, we have not had one full practice yet. At that point, he says, we have not had one full practice with the whole team, at that point. So Bear Lake, this is not indicative of how they are. I think that conference really, when it comes down to it, is a West Side Bear Lake conference right now.
Yep, I agree.
I don't think that record shows. I think Aberdeen's got a good team, not a great team. I don't think Soda's going to be a factor of going to state for them this year. Soda has some talent, and Yamauchi is coaching them, so they could be a spoiler at times, but I really think this conference is going to be dominated in conference play by West Side and Bear Lake.
I couldn't agree more. Let's before we dive into the 1As, let's preview some of these tournaments that are coming up for some of these 4A, 3A, 2A teams. Let's start with the Preston Indians Classic. IdahoSports.com is going to be broadcasting every varsity game from the Preston Indians Classic starting at 1:30 this afternoon when Bear Lake is actually in action against Filer. But you've got, obviously, Preston hosting the event. You have South Fremont playing one game. So it's kind of a weird bracket if you look at it.
Shelley's going to be down there as well.
Yes. If you look at the bracket on our website, IdahoSports.com, and it's right on the top of the homepage, Sandpoint was supposed to come down and play in this tournament, and they backed out. So it's kind of a South Fremont's going to take the first game that Sandpoint was supposed to play, and then Bear Lake will take the remaining 2. So it's kind of a South Fremont's only going to play 1 game at the Preston Classic today, and then they're going to get back into their non-conference schedule.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that tournament was interesting last year. So Star Valley was there last year from Wyoming, and Star Valley played in that. They also played in the holiday tournament at Skyline as well. It was held in Idaho Falls, and with them, it used to be that when they went to a 3-game tournament, the state would only count that as 2 games. And then last year they started counting it as 3 games, but they already were scheduled to be in the tournament. So what they had to do was bring their JV and their varsity teams and play their JV for one of the varsity games in each of those tournaments in order to not have too many games and break the rule in their state for the year. So interesting.
Yes, for sure. If we look at this bracket, to me, it's kind of setting up. This is going to be really good competition for the 4A teams that are there. You've got Jerome and Shelley possibly meeting in one semifinal.
Yeah, Jerome's a decent team this year.
Yeah, Jerome should win their conference.
Yeah.
And then I think Preston is kind of hoping to match up with Jerome in the championship. I think Jerome's the team they want to see, because that's a team that they know will go to state because that conference is down a little bit and Jerome is so much better. Shelley could get to state, but they could also be in a dogfight with Blackfoot and Hillcrest. So I think Preston would rather play Jerome in that championship.
Well, and I think one of the things too, when you're the team that sets the tournament schedule, you're going to set it so you can, that's the most favorable. That would, obviously you have to win every game when you go out, but in order to get there. But the championship game, I think the most favorable, that they set that. And I do think that's the matchup they want.
Yeah. And then let's talk about the other tournament that's going on in Owhyee, the new high school in Meridian, the Pro Image Sports Holiday Classic. Now they've got a big school bracket and a small school bracket.
We're going out.
What's that?
Pocatello's going out to that. That's it's going to be a good tournament.
Yeah, so let's talk about the big school bracket first. We're only going to be doing some audio coverage of I think it's the semifinals and the championship game of that big school bracket. But Blackfoot will be there, Pocatello will be there, and if I'm not mistaken, they're playing each other right away, right?
They are, I believe, opening day.
Yeah,
they're playing each other. Yep. And so that's going to be. I think for Pocatello, this is going to be their biggest test thus far, is going to be this tournament. Again, they had the rivalry game against Highland. Highland is just not that great of a team. They do have that big win over Burley. And, Burley, for having lost to, Preston, Century, and Pocatello, Burley's still a good team. They're not a bad team. Their record is not indicative of how good they can be. But Pocatello, I think, is really going to get tested at this tournament.
Yeah, and what a matchup!
As will Blackfoot.
Yes, that's going to be fantastic. And then there's a smaller school bracket as well for the 3A and 2A schools, and Westside is going to go over there and compete. And for Westside, this is going to be really good competition. You've got the 2 teams that met for the 2A championship last year, St. Mary's and Ambrose. You've got Homedale, which is a really good 3A program. This small school bracket is loaded.
Well, and I think what it does. One of the challenges that you often have when you go to the state tournaments is the North and the South rarely have opponents in common. There's you end up spending the first half of a ball game, teams kind of filling each other out and seeing how they are. What these new tournaments have put on is it's kind of the meet you halfway type of things. And so you get to see teams in the regular season that you don't usually get to see in the regular season. You usually just kind of play within your region, within your area, but these tournaments open that up, for a St. Mary's and a Westside to be at the same tournament and to have an opportunity to play each other. You just don't usually see that. So these tournaments have been a good thing.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun for sure. Finally, let's check in on the 1As in boys basketball quickly before we move on to girls. 1A D1, you've got Grace at 5-1, looking very strong. Butte County still kind of lurking at 3-3, but man, the Grizzlies look good.
Well, they do, and all but one of their wins is over a 2A opponent. So they're playing bigger competition, and their one loss, which came to Westside, was in a pretty close game, in a good one. That's a good Westside team. Again, a Westside team with a signature win. Grace, I made my pick last year. They I think they will win this conference. I think they'll win it handily and have a possible opportunity to win a state championship. Obviously, all roads run through Lapway, but I think Grace is very good.
Well, we're going to find out. Lapway is playing Coeur d'Alene High Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, in a tournament. Yeah.
Well, no, that's just a regular season
game. Just a regular season game? I didn't know if it was regular season. I kept thinking it was a tournament for whatever reason.
Yeah, no, this was a Lapway kind of put it out there and said, hey, we'd love to play anybody, anytime, anywhere. And Coeur d'Alene took the bait and said, all right, let's do it. How cool is that?
Well, and we talk about, teams down south in Idaho, particularly Southeast, play a lot of Utah schools and so forth. Up north, they tend to play a lot of Washington schools. And so oftentimes you don't know as much about those teams as they come in to state tournaments as you do about some others. And with Lapway playing a Coeur d'Alene, you're going to learn a lot about Coeur d'Alene. You're going to learn a lot about Lapway as well.
Yeah. So 1A D2's Rocky Mountain Conference, Rockland suffered their first loss of the season last night. They lost to Richfield 48-43. I still think Rockland is the team to beat in this league. Water Springs also off to a nice start, though. They're 5-0 overall, 4-0 in the conference, but their schedule has been a little light so far. The only challenging game they had was North Gem.
Yeah, every win they've had has been a blowout with the exception of the North Gem game. But 5-0, you can only play who's in front of you, and it's not like those were close games against bad teams. Those were blowout games against bad teams. So they did what you should do in those types of scenarios, and Chauvin looking good. I really think this is a 4-team conference. I don't think Grace Lutheran, Leadore, Mackay, or Clark County really have a prayer in this conference, or actually I should say they probably only have a prayer in this conference this year. But I think between Water Springs, Chauvin, Rockland, and North Gem, that's your group right there.
Yeah, and Grace Lutheran is a hard team for me to peg because North Gem only beat them by 2, 41-39. Both teams went over to the small school showcase last weekend at Mountain View High School. Grace Lutheran had to play the defending champs from Garden Valley, lost 59-43, held their own for a little bit, and then I really thought North Gem went over and got a nice win over Horseshoe Bend by 10, 45-35.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought so too, and I think that's going to be, one of those groups that we look at, and and it definitely has some teams in it that are going to be tough to handle, for a lot to handle.
No doubt. All right, let's move on to girls basketball, and kind of like with the boys conversation, I think we have to start at the 4A level because you had the Preston Indians Classic for the girls last weekend in Preston. And for Preston, it couldn't have matched up any better. You got Middleton in the semifinals, Blackfoot in the championship. Those are two of the, premier 4A programs. I'll be honest, that Preston Middleton game really opened my eyes because of how dominant the Indians were in that win. 58-22 over a Middleton team that didn't lose last year until they got to state. I mean, that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, it very much was, and I think Preston. I've had a chance to see them this year. I think Preston is they're going to go a long ways. They are going to go a long ways, and they are a tough outing for anybody.
I mean, if you think about the big picture for 4A basketball, there's kind of a big four, right? There's Burley, Middleton, Preston, and Blackfoot. Preston's already played those other three teams. They lost to Burley by 9. They blew out Middleton. And then how about this championship matchup? Blackfoot defeats Preston in the championship at the Preston Classic, 31-28. That was a good game.
Yeah, it was a close game. In fact, really, Blackfoot got challenged a couple times in that tournament. Sugar Salem was within 10 of them. The close one with Preston. Preston's a good team. I watched them in an overtime game against Sugar Salem earlier this year. Preston is very good. And, the first of the season, I thought Blackfoot's going to fairly easily run away with this. But some teams are stepping up and giving some challenges to Blackfoot.
Blackfoot, of course, 12-0. Burley, 10-0. Those two seem like they're on a collision course. If that comes, it will have to be at state, but that would be a lot of fun to see. Shelley continuing to play well. They're 6-3. Pocatello, 4-5. That's a marked improvement from where they've been the last couple of years. So that's what we're keeping an eye on in the 4A ranks.
Yeah.
5A girls hoops, Thunder Ridge and Rigby. Now, I kind of knew, kind of like on the boys' side, I didn't know what to expect with this Rigby team because they lost a lot to graduation last year. But here's Rigby excelling again.
Yeah, Rigby's just tough in everything right now, coming off that football state championship as well. Thunder Ridge 9-1, only loss on the season to Blackfoot. Rigby at 8-2. The rest of the conference down a little bit. Highland does have a winning record of 5-4. Idaho Falls yet to win a game. Madison at 3-5, and I think right now Madison might be happy with that 3-5 because it could have been worse for them this year during the coaching change, and they're down a little bit of talent right now, but they've stepped up and won a few games. But I think definitely Thunder Ridge and Rigby, it's going to come down to those two teams, barring any major injury or something.
Yeah, Sugar Salem in the 3A ranks. They look good. They're 6-2. They got a win over Middleton in the third place game at the Preston Indians Classic. They won by 2, which is a good win for Sugar. But here's the thing: just like on the boys' side, Sugar's 6-2, but South Fremont and Teton are both 8-2.
Yeah, they are. This is a good conference. Good conference this year. I think possibly the difference as you look at these teams is the level of competition, that has been played. But Teton's girls, and I felt last year that Teton's girls were probably the most athletic. Meaning, if I threw that group out on a track, I think they win it. They were that good, as far as just pure athletes go. They just struggled at times to put the ball in the hole, but. They've got some, wins over some good teams. They beat a 4A Hillcrest team. They're struggling, but they went out and beat them by 15. And their only loss came, or one of their 2 losses came to Shelley, a good Shelley team, and they were lost by 2 points.
Yeah, it's very impressive. We're going to find out about this Teton team. They play North Fremont tonight, and then Jackson Hole on Saturday, and Jackson Hole is a step up in competition in terms of classification level. So that'll be good. And then I think we're going to find out about South Fremont as well, because they play Snake River on Tuesday. And Snake River, of course, we know is one of the premier girls basketball programs. Snake River 5-1, looking like they might run away with that conference. American Falls kind of lurking at 5-3, but I really like the Panthers.
Oh yeah. I think Snake River is going to definitely be the team to beat. I'm excited to see them this year. Cass Baldwin, their head JV coach, is one of my very, very good friends. I see him up in Sugar, later on in the season. In fact, tonight they host Sugar down at Snake River, so that'll be good. I'll get a chance to see him on January 4th, which is the next time that actually Sugar's girls are at home. But Snake River is going to be good. They're also going to be in that East Idaho Holiday Tournament as well. So, they're going to face some really good competition throughout this year.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. The 2A Nuclear Conference, I don't know, throw a dart at the board, right? You've got Ryrie at 4-4, North Fremont's 4-5, West J 3-7. Salmon is at 500, 2-2. I don't know. There's a lot of they've lost a lot out of conference.
Yeah, they have. However, I still think Ryrie is going to end up pulling this out at the end. I think Ryrie, I think one of the differences is because of the success that they've consistently had in their girls program, kids go into that program expecting to win. And when you have that mentality, when you go into a ball game, that right there is worth 6 to 8 points during a ball game, I feel.
Yeah, it's Ryrie could be primed for a big winter sports season with boys basketball, girls basketball, and of course we know how good Ryrie is in wrestling.
Yeah,
one of the dominant programs from East Idaho for sure. Southeast Idaho Conference, District 5 in 2A girls hoops. Aberdeen continues to look strong, 7-2. West Side also looking very strong. I think it's going to come down to those two teams.
Well, I think it is too, and I honestly think that Aberdeen might be the better of those two teams. Aberdeen just really, really looks good. I think they're a team that can score from a number of different places. They have people that can hurt you. Their 2 losses were close. Against Marsh Valley, they ended up losing by 13, but that was a game that was closer throughout the course of the game. And then they did lose to a good Grace team, but I think Aberdeen is a team to be reckoned with. I mean, you look at their win, for example, over top of Firth. Firth doesn't have a great team this year. They beat Firth 65-24. I mean, that was huge. Beat Ryrie 50-44. They do have a win over Marsh Valley, 70-60, and that's a good Marsh Valley team. The only thing Marsh Valley is lacking at this point is height on that girls' team. Other than that, they are right on.
Yeah. You mentioned Ryrie and the win that Aberdeen had over Ryrie, and that's going to transition to the next point I'm going to make, and that is Soda Springs, right? They're kind of lurking as well. Now they're 1-4, but their 4 losses were to Ryrie twice, Preston, and Sugar Salem. So like those 4 losses, that 1-4 is different than somebody else's 1-4.
Oh, there's no question about it. I mean, it's kind of like what we talked about with Bear Lakes boys being 0-4. I mean, that's a team that you can't look at their record and see what they're going to be. I mean, they very much passed the eye test.
And their win was over Snake River.
Yeah,
the only loss for the Panthers this year came to Soda Springs.
Good Snake River team. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to find out real quick with Aberdeen if they're ready to take that next step, because they play Soda Springs next Wednesday, followed by Grace the following Wednesday. So over these next 2 weeks, these are 2 big matchups, one within the conference for Aberdeen.
Yeah, and then against a Grace team that they've already lost to. So
right,
so that's they've got some challenges. This will be a proving ground for them, and it'll also be a proving ground for Soda Springs.
Yes,
to say, hey, you're a good team. You've lost a lot of close games against some really good schools. So can you step up and get the wins now as you start getting into conference play?
And for Soda, I mean, they're 1-4, but they've got a chance to go 2-0 in the league and take control of this conference race, because they play Aberdeen and they play Westside Friday night. So that's going to be, we'll find out a lot about Soda Springs, certainly. 1A's, it's Grace's world. 1A D1, everybody else is living in it, I think. But Butte County is 9-0, and they are also looking good.
Yeah, Butte County is looking good. I'm still taking Grace at this point, but Butte's looking good. But Grace could have a very good winter again as well with their boys and their girls.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Butte County, they've got some nice wins. They've defeated Cary, a team that went to the D2 state tournament last year. They've beaten West J, North Fremont, Salmon, and North Fremont again. Like Butte County would probably be in first place in the nuclear conference.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So they'll be a team. Coach Hansen at Butte County has done a nice job. Rocky Mountain Conference, 1A D2s. Mackey and Rockland are on a collision course. We're actually going to broadcast that game in I think it's late January, when Mackey goes to Rockland in girls basketball. But Mackey's 7-1, Rockland's 8-1.
Yeah. That's going to be the matchup that everyone's looking for. And again, the rest of the conference is grasping those 2 straws right there, because they are the top straws for sure.
Yeah, and Rockland suffered their first loss of the season last night, just like the boys team. Their first loss came last night to Raft River, a very good Raft River team that only has 1 loss, 47-39. So, yeah, it's basketball is heating up, Lance. That's kind of a quick whip around of what's going on in hoops. The big things fans can tune into is West Side competing at the Owhyee tournament. All of those games will be covered. And then the Preston Indians Classic, which starts today. There's going to be a lot of good basketball, and all of those games will be video streamed on IdahoSports.com at the Preston Classic.
Yeah. It's going to be very good. It's going to be exciting.
Yes, I actually, as soon as we're done here, I'm taking off for Preston to go call those games. So
drive carefully.
Yes.
Tough weather out there.
Yeah, and you enjoy the games in your area too. I'm interested to see how those 5A schools do against Corner Canyon. So
I'm interested to see that tonight as well.
Yeah, we'll have plenty to talk about again next week. Thanks for tuning into this edition of the East Idaho Prepcast, brought to you by Pure Adrenaline Motorsports, your source for pulse-pounding adrenaline sports apparel and accessories that ensure you have what you need to unleash your inner beast. For Lance Taylor, I'm Brandon Baney. We'll see you next time on IdahoSports.com.